everyone, Sharpline here. I am in the Invest Studios with my good friend Sal, and I wanted to take this opportunity to make a short video wishing all the global exchange communities around the world a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, of course, a wonderful New Year. I know you guys are working really hard to end the year with a lot of momentum, and I just want to take this time to appreciate each and every one of you. When you're just a user checking out the platform, or if you're one of our top performing brokers, we really do appreciate the work that you're doing. We've been together, almost a quarter. It feels like a lot longer, but that just goes to show you how much momentum we're making. And no matter where you are across the world, no matter what type of holiday you're celebrating, we wanted to extend a warm and holiday season to you and your families. And we wanted you to really take this time to reflect on everything that we have to be grateful for in this great cryptocurrency markets, and just incredible timing for everything that we're doing. Of course, prepare for a stellar 2020. So thank you so much, and stay tuned for a lot more interesting content coming your way. Distribution situated in our distribution networks across the world to help those companies grow. We have a capacity of about 20 more portfolio companies, probably 25. Some of them are available on the website, although I do need to be updated, of companies that we think are super important and have big futures in the crypto space. You can go through this entire website to learn everything about them, meet our team, look at our venues, look at everything about the parent company. And we have all these figures and large vision for what we're trying to accomplish. And the last thing I want to talk about is Invest Campus. And you can go to bangalore.investcampus.com or london.investcampus.com, or if you want to see a coming soon page, you can go to toronto.investcampus.com. That's the newest location that we're trying to do something with. And Invest Campus is really simple. It's a network of R&D facilities. I am sitting in the largest one in the subcontinent. I am currently in Bangalore, India, and we have built what is a fabulous research and development facility accompanied by a training institute for blockchain developers and a production studio for blockchain companies. Essentially, if you have an idea and you stumble into here, we will give you some roti and make you a blockchain entrepreneur. But how we spend time with almost 100 developers to take the technology to the next level is what you guys should really come to understand, because we are more than committed to the propagation of this technology, and that is what separates us from the ability to build, deploy quick and suitable products for the market. We duplicated smaller ones in London, and we really want to do Toronto, but actually there are 2 other cities that we might do first because of how things are playing out with global exchange. So that's the parent company. We're excited, we are distributed, we are passionate, and we are focused on trying to deliver a more open financial system. Now let's get into what happened in the cryptocurrency markets. If you don't know anything about the cryptocurrency markets, some of this information might be a news flash. If you do know about the cryptocurrency markets, you should know most of this information. However, my goal and the only thing that I hope to accomplish is to present you a paradigm within these markets that most people, even crypto savants, miss out on. I am on my favorite website in the world, coinmarketcap.com. If you are a crypto anybody, you know that coinmarketcap.com is the website that you go to learn about crypto prices. It is an aggregator of all cryptocurrencies. Yes, all of them, thousands and thousands and thousands of them. Whereby you get live pricing data, chart analysis, etc., etc., etc. If you looked at the statistics, you realize that CoinMarketCap gets some 80 million unique visitors every month, making it not only the most popular cryptocurrency website in the world, but the 5th most popular financial website on planet Earth, which leads you to believe, what does this website do that's so impressive? And I will tell you what this website does that's so impressive. It presents the most shallow explanation of the cryptocurrency market's ability to create wealth, which is the price of Bitcoin and or other assets. People like a drug addict come to this website every day to check this price right here, 7,226, and wonder, are they richer today or are they poorer today? This would be the moral equivalent of owning a farm caught up in day-to-day price movements, and in crypto, which never shuts down as a market and fluctuates much more aggressively than other markets, this is a godsend to be able to check on a daily, if not hourly basis. And so what I want to talk about here is on this homepage, two numbers that get overlooked and don't get enough credit. The first number is this right here, market capitalization. For those of you that know financial lingo, you know that market capitalization represents the total notional US dollar volume in any financial asset. Well, this time it's cryptocurrency. You take all the cryptocurrencies in the world and you look at all the US dollars that are currently inside of those assets, and it makes up 196 billion US dollars, or 196.5 billion US dollars. Now, that was neither high nor low. In 2017, that was an $800 billion market cap, which means it was 4 times what it is today. And in 2011, it was probably 1/4 of what it was today, if not less, which means it's a relative number, but what it does represent in the span of the global financial system, $250 million, sorry, $250 billion, sorry, I should say $1/5 trillion is a very small amount of money. To put it into perspective, probably the market capitalization of most NYSE companies, definitely the FANG stocks, Apple, Amazon, Google, have much larger market caps than all cryptocurrencies combined. Okay, well that means you're early to something. That's great, and I find it hilarious when people think that they're late to cryptocurrencies. That is, again, the equivalent of saying you're late to the U.S. stock market when the entire stock market is now was smaller than the size of one stock today, which is hilarious. What I want you to focus on, however, which again most people overlook, is 24-hour trading volume. Now, why do I focus on this number? Well, 24-hour trading volume means how much of the market cap exchanged hands in the last 24 hours. In other words, out of the $1/5 trillion in the cryptocurrency markets, how much of it moved? Well, that's 111 billion US dollars. Now, if you are not an analyst, you might not find that shocking. But if you are an analyst and if you traded in other assets, you will find that incredible, because what that means is over half all the money in this entire asset class switched hands yesterday. That is incredible economic volume reflectivity, meaning people are exchanging at a rapid rate that is driving volatility, and that volatility changes prices rapidly. As you can see, Bitcoin's down 5% today. It's going to be up some next percent tomorrow, and who knows what's going to happen next day. What we do know is it'll be vicious. Okay, well, that asks one great question. Whoever invested in Bitcoin yesterday is 6% poorer. Whoever invested in Bitcoin at the beginning of January is almost 2.5 times richer. All of that being said, there has been one small group of people who have profited off of all of that. These are the groups of people that benefit when there is high trading volume, and there's always high trading volume, irrespective of whether the market's down, up, sideways, in circles, and that is exchanges. The people who are facilitating these trades, this volume. Who are they? They are faceless. Where are they? We don't know. But luckily enough, CoinMarketCap at least tells you how much money they're making. If you click rankings and then go into exchanges, and instead of clicking reported volume, which is what the exchanges report as their daily volume, but who believes them? Why don't we just go to adjusted volume, which is quasi-verified volume? Not fully verified, but to some degree has a level of verification. And we can see not cryptocurrencies here, but all the exchanges and the volume that they are doing. And it's astonishing. Bet BKEX, I assure you no one on this call knows what BKEX is, and I assure you that if 1,000 people end up watching this video, none of them will know what BKEX is. I assure you BW.com is a website you have never been to and will probably never go to. LBank.com sounds like LBank.com. P2P to B2B, yes, that is some real exchange. And the one that probably has the most name recognition is number 5, finance. Let's talk about BKEX. Again, exchange you've never heard of. Last 24 hours has had $2.8 billion US traded on it. And we repeat that number for those of you that needed to hear it again. That is 2.8 billion US dollars in transactional volume that happened on their exchange. That is astonishing, because how exchanges make money is by providing liquidity markets, platforms where people swap. One person buys, one person sells, and they charge a maker and a taker fee. Let's just give them the lowest possible maker-taker fee that they could charge, which is 0.01%. They say, all right, guys, I'm in my super sick car, and I'm at my super sick mansion, and then, oh, wait, I'm in an alley in Pittsburgh getting out of my Volkswagen Golf. Yeah, what are you going to say to the people right now? I got to tell you a little bit about Amazon FBA, and most of the time, the gurus are there with their girls, and the boots are out, and they got the Ferraris. But what I got is a whiteboard and a Volkswagen, okay? So here's the thing, guys. You are here, okay? You're right down here, and we need to get... I'm really excited to share with you some findings that really surprised me about what makes companies succeed the most. What factors actually matter the most for startup success? I believe that the startup organization is one of the greatest forms to make the world a better place. If you take a group of people with the right equity incentives and organize them in a startup, you can unlock human potential in a way never before possible. You get them to achieve unbelievable things. But if the startup organization is so great, why do so many fail? That's what I wanted to find out. I wanted to find out what actually matters most for startup success. And I wanted to try to be systematic about it, avoid some of my instincts and maybe misperceptions I have from so many companies I've seen over the years. I wanted to know this because I've been starting businesses since I was 12 years old, when I sold candy at the bus stop in junior high school, to high school when I made solar energy devices, to college when I made loudspeakers. When I graduated from college, started software companies. 20 years ago, I started IdeaLab, and in the last 20 years, we started more than 100 companies, many successes and many big failures. We learned a lot from those failures. So I tried to look across what factors accounted the most for company success and failure. So I looked at these 5. First, the idea. I used to think that the idea was everything. And I named my company IdeaLab, and how much I worshiped the aha moment when you first come up with the idea. But then over time, I came to think that maybe the team, the execution, adaptability, that mattered even more than the idea. I never thought I'd be quoting boxer Mike Tyson on the TED stage, but he once said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And I think that's so true about business as well. So much about a team's execution is its ability to adapt to getting punched in the face by the customer. The customer is the true reality. And that's why I came to think that the team maybe was the most important thing. Then I started looking at the business model. Does the company have a very clear path generating customer revenues? That started rising to the top in my thinking about maybe what mattered most for success. Then I looked at the funding. Sometimes companies received intense amount of funding. Maybe that's the most important thing. And then, of course, the timing. Is the idea way too early and the world's not ready for it? Is it early, meaning you're in advance and you have to educate the world? Is it just right, or is it too late and there's already too many competitors? So I tried to look very carefully at these 5 factors across many companies. And I looked across all 100 IdeaLab companies and 100 non-IdeaLab companies to try and come up with something scientific about it. So first, on these IdeaLab companies, the top 5 companies, City Search, Cars Direct, GoTo, NetZero, Tickets.com, those all became billion-dollar successes. The 5 companies on the bottom, Z.com, Insider Pages, My Life, Desktop Factory, PeopleLink, we all had high hopes for, but didn't succeed. So I tried to rank across all of those attributes how I felt those companies scored on each of those dimensions. And then for non-IdeaLab companies, I looked at wild successes like Airbnb and Instagram and Uber and YouTube and LinkedIn. And some failures, Webvan, Cosmo, Pets.com, Flues, and Friendster. The bottom companies had intense funding. They even had business models in some cases, but they didn't succeed. I tried to look at what factors actually counted the most for success and failure across all these companies. And the results really surprised me. The number one thing was timing. Timing accounted for 42% of the difference between success and failure. Team and execution came in second, and the idea, the differentiability of the idea, the unique idea, that actually came in third. Now, this isn't absolutely definitive. It's not to say that the idea isn't important, but it very much surprised me that the idea wasn't the most important thing. Sometimes it mattered more when it was actually timed. The last 2, business model and funding, made sense to me, actually.
I think business model makes sense to be that low because you can start out without a business model and then add one later if your customers are demanding what you're creating. And funding, I think as well. If you're underfunded at first, but you're gaining traction, especially in today's age, it's very, very easy to get intense funding. So now let me give you some specific examples about each of these. So take a wild success like Airbnb, everybody knows about. Well, that company was famously passed on by many smart investors because people thought, no one's going to rent out a space in their home to a stranger. Of course, people proved that wrong. But one of the reasons it succeeded, aside from a good business model, a good idea, great execution, is the timing. That company came out right during the height of the recession when people really needed extra money. And that maybe helped people overcome their objection to renting out their own home to a stranger. Same thing with Uber. Uber came out, incredible company, incredible business model, great execution too. But the timing was so perfect for their need to get drivers into the system. Drivers were looking for extra money. It was very, very important. Some of our early successes, CitySearch came out when people needed web pages. GoTo.com, which we announced actually at TED in 1998, was when companies were looking for cost-effective ways to get traffic. We thought the idea was so great, but actually the timing was probably maybe more important. And then some of our failures. We started a company called Z.com. It was an online entertainment company. We were so excited about it. We raised enough money. We had a great business model. We even signed incredibly great Hollywood talent to join the company. But broadband penetration was too low in 1999, 2000. It was too hard to watch video content online. You had to put codecs in your browser and do all this stuff. The company eventually went out of business in 2003. Just 2 years later, when the codec problem was solved by Adobe Flash, and when broadband penetration crossed 50% in America, YouTube was perfectly timed. Great idea, but unbelievable timing. In fact, YouTube didn't even have a business model when it first started. It wasn't even certain that would work out, but that was beautifully, beautifully timed. So what I would say in summary is execution definitely matters a lot. The idea matters a lot. But timing might matter even more. And the best way to really assess timing is to really look whether consumers are really ready for what you have to offer them. To be really, really honest about it, not be in denial about any results that you see. Because if you have something you love, you want to push it forward. But you have to be very, very honest about that factor on timing. As I said earlier, I think startups can change the world and make the world a better place. I hope some of these insights can maybe help you have a slightly higher success ratio and thus make something great come to the world that wouldn't have happened otherwise. Thank you very much. It's been a great audience.
Greetings, opportunists of Crypto Broker Academy. Today I have a wonderful treat to share with you guys. It is something that is both motivating and inspiring and lights a fire under your butt to go out there and share this wonderful platform with the rest of the world, both crypto enthusiasts and those that are completely new to the world of this shift in the currency of the world. And this page is the pulse of the company, thus pulse.globalexchange.com gives you the overall reading of the company, where the company stats are, and how you can keep track of them on a day-to-day basis. So it gives you a lot of the metrics of the company, such as the total transactional volume that they've done up to date. So as you can see, up to today, they have done $1.5 billion worth of volume, and they have paid out $221,000 worth of commissions. If you do the math, that's about a 13% commission paid out on the total volume. May not sound like a lot, but realize that we are just earning transactional fees, and that's money that would not otherwise be captured by everyday people like you and I, but rather by major corporations such as Coinbase, Bittrex, Binance, blockchain, and we would not participate at all. So the fact that we are getting paid this amount of money is incredible to begin with, because it was otherwise lost. As we can see, we are currently in 49 countries, which is incredible considering the rate of growth. Which, by the way, I want to show you one very important thing: the total number of GX brokers worldwide. As you can see, it's creeping up on that magical 1,000, that comma digit, which I believe tonight is the last night I'll get to share a number less than 1,000 with you guys. That's why it's crucial that I get this out to you as quickly as possible. You can also take a deeper dive into the other metrics, such as the OTC broker leaders board, with all of the other metrics of OTC, as well as token brokerage, and the amount of volume that we've done there so far. Also, one of the most encouraging and the one that unites a lot of people is the countries that are taking the lead. As you can see, Canada is at the forefront with 43% of all brokers out there, and then the United States is next, and then you have all of them from the top to all the way, the newest ones that are coming on board. Beyond all of that, there's a full presentation here, so it's something that you can just get a full.
Beautiful. So can everyone see my screen? I think the chat box has disappeared on me. Right up there. Beautiful. So I'm gonna keep the chat open. Haha. Beautiful. So everyone sees my screen. I guess the first cosmetic change is that we have this auto video playing now. This is like the GX promo video. We had the song auto playing and that annoyed enough people. And so we turned that off. Now we still have the video playing. Take some time to load, and I'm gonna actually figure out how to render it in the front end so that it doesn't even load, it just automatically plays. I think it adds a dynamic element to the website. So that's just, doesn't really mean much, but it's a little bit of an update. We'll be doing a lot more of that type of publicity marketing coming up. So first and foremost, let's log in. So I'm going to log in. I don't fully remember my password after changing it this week. I'm sure you guys are in the same boat unless you've used a password you recall very well. All right. So updates. The first update is the most consequential update of them all. And I really want to focus on this because it is something that's causing tremendous amount of issues, or it could cause issues, and I hope the fact that we've rectified it has solved those issues. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Right now, if someone wants to fund their account with US dollars, which is the best way, by the way, for them to get involved, they would have either bank wired us the money, or they would have done a Bitcoin deposit. They could have done credit card. We really want to standardize the process of putting money into your GX account, and so we built a great process for that works in conjunction with our banking partners around the world, as well as our administrative staff, to ensure that you can track your progress and to ensure that the procedure is smooth. This is the most important process for global exchange, is the ability to get money in and out of the platform via fiat. And so we're continuously improving it. And we've had hiccups, we've had successes, but we want to continuously improve it. And I know this week we're going to implement this update that I'm showing you, and it's going to go a long way, I think, in terms of streamlining that. So it's your log administrative. Perfect. So someone wants that US dollars. Great. They click add funds. Let's be very clear. They can use 3 of these options right now. They're probably not going to use withdraw for broker. Hope everyone can hear me. If you can hear me, give me some sign of life. If you cannot hear me, don't give me the sign of life. I hope you can. Oh, I hear you. Amazing. That's what I love to hear. I apologize for my brief delay. As you know, I'm on the other side of the world. It's a little early. And just trying to run between calls here. So, as customary scheduled, I will start the call in 5 minutes. 5 minutes, I will begin the call no later than 5 minutes. We are going to begin in 1 minute. In 1 minute, we will begin. Shout out to everyone attending from all over the world. What are the crypto markets saying this early in the morning? It's not really that early for some of you to read. So, in this video, we're going to be dissecting how you get paid off of token broker transactions. Let's just recap for those that may not have seen the last video. Token broker transactions are when someone or a customer comes to your GX brokerage via the checkout link and purchases tokens. Right now, the only thing people are doing are token brokerage. Welcome. My name is Sharpan. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Invest, the parent company behind Global Exchange. In the last video, we explained what was our motivation for creating the GX Broker program. In this video, we're going to go into a little bit more details about the facts and figures of the GX Certified Broker. This is the first out of two broker options. And in this option, we really focus on small brokerages or single-man brokerages that want to elevate their financial business. If you are working in the financial industry, or if you've ever had interest in working in the financial industry, or if you're a crypto enthusiast, or if you're just learning about crypto, the GX Certified Broker program is perfect for you. And I'll tell you why. It's built for people that want to assist other people in getting involved. Hey GX World, Sean Beck here. I wanted to take some time to
go to college, get your degree, get a good job, and you can live a comfortable life. That's what they said to us. And you know what? It's a big fat lie. Why? Well, here's why. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the average salary in America is $56,516. Now, that's gross salary, not take-home pay. That would leave you with less than $3,000 a month to live on. What about saving for retirement? The sad fact is, there's nothing left to save for retirement. Because did you know that 90% of America retires at or below poverty income levels? Most people aren't even thinking about saving for retirement because they're too focused on trying to keep up with their monthly bills. Life is not supposed to be like that. Life is supposed to be enjoyable, right? Well, we live in the land of the free, so why? Why are we not free? Why are we not free? Why can't we do whatever we want?
So here I have two devices, and I will transfer $1 from this device to this device instantaneously. To the amount, and send. I'm seeing its transaction now. There it is.
What you've just witnessed is what looks like a standard financial transaction. Money was transferred electronically from one account to another. But while it appears like an ordinary bank transfer, it may perhaps be the most revolutionary technology you're likely to see in your lifetime. This technology is called Bitcoin.
Money makes possible the exchange of many different goods and services among many different people. Wherever we go, we see money being used as a medium of exchange.
Money is at the core of our existence. Every day, we transact with one another. Currently, almost all of our daily transactions involve a third party. A bank, credit card company, or remittance provider. And ultimately, it's these institutions that carry out the transaction on our behalf. This is until the invention of Bitcoin.
Bitcoin is truly one of the most important inventions ever in the history of humankind. That's how big of an impact it's going to have on our lives. And it sounds really difficult and complicated and hard to understand hearing about it. If you'd only heard about email, it would sound difficult and complicated. Bitcoin is literally easier to use than email.
So what exactly is?
I think that the internet is going to be one of the major forces for reducing the role of government. The one thing that's missing that will soon be developed
Okay, do you guys see my screen? It should say GX broker compensation.
Yes.
Beautiful. The idea, this first page, and this is the document that will be released to everyone. So some of you have already seen this. And then there's a compensation for broker dealers, which I will release as well, which some people have seen, some people have not, but the majority of people haven't seen that. First page is just an introduction. And then I'm going to go into the 3 ways that you can earn from your brokerage. The first one is called brokerage volume, or BV bonus. The second one is called qualified trader acquisition, or CTA bonus. And then the third one is monthly recurring revenue, or MMR bonus. 2 of these 3 are not even in existence right now. So 2 and 3 are not even in existence. The only one that's in existence, and the one that we're going to cover today, is number 1. The remaining 2 are actually coming out on August. Hey everybody, welcome to this official Global Exchange webinar hosted by me, Sharpan. I'm the CEO.
Of technology and the internet and kind of the computer revolution. And one thing that sort of makes clear is how it wasn't, at least kind of the book's argument and thesis goes, it wasn't inevitable that sort of so many of these things happened, or some of these kind of ideas were accumulating. It was sort of particular people who had particular ambitions, folks like Mick Leiders originally at MIT, who kind of funded a lot of the work that sort of led to the internet. And sort of then, I guess, his intellectual descendants like Engelbart and Kay and so forth. And I guess the optimistic view would be sort of a lot of that kind of ambition about sort of the power that software can have on society sort of can in fact be reclaimed, or at least that we're not sort of necessarily fall victim to the noise that surrounds us today.
The Twitter, yeah. Well, that's why I'm spending a little bit extra time on this. So
I'm actually, I should just say, like, I think Twitter is a tremendous
sort of
force for
good. I kind of live on it, so it's nice for me. But then the other thing I was going to say is that my models of computing are allocated to Dynamo, essentially describes Apple and combined computing, and Xerox PARC MovieComp, which essentially describes terminals and Google. And those are still the 2 dominant models of computing today, 50 years later. And so when I look at client or server, it's essentially Xerox and Xerox. Yep. Actually, that's kind of it. Okay, so I was going to ask you what a philopolist is, but I'm going to wait till the end. I'm excited about that. So the other word is hate or Twitter bio that I had to look up, but I like it now. So let's talk about Stripe. So how big is Stripe now today?
I think it's around 330.
330, and it's all and it's 5 years old.
Yeah, it's actually a bit hard because do you count from basically that dinner when sort of John has led me, or sort of from when we first launched it or whatever. But generally, what I sort of count from is when we launched publicly, because we have fewer than 100 users at that point. And we launched publicly to the world September 30th, 2011, and so we kind of just celebrated our 4th birthday post-launch. And so we're kind of effectively on the order of 5 years from kind of really working at full time.
You're 330 people now. A year ago, you have to at that time.
Yeah, probably some year ago, maybe 160, 70 people.
Yeah, so about double every year now. Yeah, what was it that Eric Schmidt said? You can doubling every year is possible. Quadrupling every year is really hard.
Certainly, we did not double every year.
So talk about how you're organized.
I'm trying to do an evening class, but I want to mention just in general.
How you run? Like, do you have vice presidents? Do you have managers? Does everybody do whatever they want? Bureaucracy? What happens?
So the harder bit, I suppose, is that we're relatively conventionally organized, and that there's always such a temptation, sort of when you're starting out, to go and sort of reconceive the nature of humanity and how people can collaborate and work and so forth, and that basically you should really kind of try to discourage that inner voice. And I think it sort of comes from a good place where you want to kind of reconceive all these things, right? But there's two problems with that. And the first is that you kind of think about sort of what risks you're taking in the business, and sort of empirically the standard means of organization are sufficiently effective to create the Googles and the Facebooks and the Intels and so forth of the world. And so, even if just posit that sort of you're actually capable of conceiving a more effective way of having tens, hundreds, thousands of people working together, whether you actually need that to achieve your actual goals. And the second one is that probably all of the problems with any alternative that you could conceive are things that you haven't been exposed to sort of today. You just don't have the life experience to sort of anticipate. And so basically whatever you think you should probably do instead, you're almost certain to wrong. And
So let's stay on that for a second. That's an unusual thing for a Silicon Valley person to say.
don't innovate.
Maybe old people know what they're doing because they've done it before. They've lived through it.
Old people,
Can you break that apart a little bit?
yeah, it's
As an old person, I'm excited about this line of questioning.
I think that technology changes a lot, right? And so I think sort of the right answers, sort of given, the right answer is a function of the current technological equilibrium, right? And so if an old person thinks that such and such is a bad idea, or something like that, there's an excellent chance that now, some period of time later, they're wrong, right? Because that actually dependent variable has changed, right? But people aren't changing a whole lot, and so sort of whatever the optimal system was, some period of time previously, so that your default prior should be probably a pretty good idea. I'll caveat that with, I think if you just kind of look at the history of Silicon Valley, things are in fact changing, even if people themselves aren't changing that much, because I guess just the environment, those expectations and so forth are changing. And secondly, I think that sort of kind of a discount factor on sort of how well we do things is that people do copy too much. There's kind of this mimetic force of play. Like my favorite example of this is kind of standard Silicon Valley interviews. His name, Google's HR, Laszlo, right? Wrote this great article for the New York Times where, as I recall, he sort of admitted that they've observed almost no correlation between GPA and Google sort of interviews themselves and sort of subsequent performance at Google, right? And certainly the GPA. And like essentially every company does some kind of algorithm style interviews and essentially everyone knows that doesn't really work, right? And yet nothing changes, and it just seems so insane, right? And as far as I can tell, it's sort of you want to be successful. You look at what the successful company does. They do algorithms and interviews and whiteboards. And so, despite the fact that most technology companies are not about writing algorithms, that you sort of want to translate into the very possible what it is that they do, and it's just like surprisingly robust and resilient. And so we don't do that. We just try to think about, well, what it is the people at Stripe are actually doing day to day. I mean, they're writing code works really well, and then when people join, they're generally pretty good at writing good code on laptops. And so there's this again sort of discount factor where I think people just there's too much inertia in these ideas. But having said that, in terms of just the organization of a large group of people, default is to trust mechanism.
Yeah, masturbation is a lot of technology. It's around really work for you that's recruiting. And sometimes there's a number of things, but invention is really hard. And invention without dealing, because it means kind of dealing with unintended consequences. There's a lot of things that happen when you do things differently in the face of it. Right? There's no maps, there's no guidance.
I think there's also just kind of a question of cost benefits, right? In the sense that like if you can be sort of somewhat better, or even epsilon better on recruiting, sort of maybe that actually matters, right? Whereas for a significant fraction of things that happen in a company, I mean, you can fail if you screw them up, but they're not going to be sort of the things that sort of create outsized success by themselves. And for those, again, it's just player.
Even if you kind of posit that you're right, that you can do them better than all of your kind of mistaken predecessors, is it really worth spending your time there? Because I mean, fundamentally, that's the most constrained resource, right?
Yep. Okay. So you talked about your laptop reviews. You guys had a reputation, I think, well deserved, of being excellent at hiring very, very, very good developers. And how long did it take before you started doing laptop interviews? Is it changed now that you're 300 people?
Yeah. So I think it's also hard to know for anything that was like good or bad at Stripe. One, it's hard to know whether it's actually good or bad.
I mean, growing up, we're a little bit, I don't know, weird.
We just believed we could do anything.
Turns out we're just broke. We have no plumbing. There's no toilets to flush. We're boiling water to take baths with it. Toilet paper rolls stuck on a tree branch. But they always worked really hard to make it fun for us kids.
Mom always had that kind of confidence. You know, it's not how many times you fall, it's how many times you get back up. If you can work hard enough, you can accomplish anything. You just tweak this one little thing, and all of a sudden it becomes special.
Turned out of the bombshell, causing shockwaves around the world.
The largest leak of secret documents in history.
This was a really important leak. We had emails, we had passport scans, we had corporation documents.
We had the goods on how it worked.
There is another set of tax rules for the fortunate and the well-connected. Income inequality, poverty, drug trafficking. A lot of the keys to addressing those problems are in the Panama Papers.
This is all
Underground rivers of money, unbeknownst to most people.
If you find money tied to Bashar al-Assad and to Putin, maybe it's not a good idea to know the unknown.
I wondered if we could keep this whole project secret.
My head is really spinning when I'm waking up and thinking about that money and how I gotta go and get it. Give me all of that. All of that shit. You wanna do all UMC. The industry is saturated, avalanche is agitated. So I give it all I got to get the crowd quite captivated. Vivid rhymes doesn't cost a dime, but gosh, this time I think I freaking lost my mind. You have the time to help me find the peace of mind. That's fine, but before should I have you seen my heart? Everybody say from left to right, and all the ladies get loose. Bless the mic, and all the haters get ready to get recognized. So everybody say. Everybody say from left to right, and all the ladies get loose. We bless the mic, and all the haters get ready to get recognized. So everybody say. Trace my steps and taste my breath. I taste my sweat, things regret, but can't waste a sec. I seem stupid, but I'm moving. I'm short of breath, like I had a snore and I had to breathe through it. Did a leech do this? Sucking on my cerebellum. If he was a bunch of man, I shoulda wouldn't even tell him. No way, do my sentences make sense? Well, I gotta make dollars to make sense. And pay rent where I'm misplaced, it will only time tells. Maybe it's with that woman who broke my dry spell. Or is it with that sexy kush with a dash of the hash? Or an extra push? Check the bushes and I check my shoebox. Oh, I forgot some pounds, I like to keep it in my shoe socks. So is it over there on the ground? So that's fine. But before, should I have you seen my heart? Everybody sway from left to right, and all the ladies get loose when we blast the mic, and all the haters get ready to get wrecked tonight. So everybody say, everybody sway from left to right, and all the ladies get loose when we blast the mic, and all the haters get ready to get wrecked tonight. So everybody say, what's the deal? I just broke in the booth. Broke the fuck out of that whack institute. I come to shoot down all your misconceptions. My sanity's intact, still on my neck. Rest and stop your damn questions. All star confessions. Flash your pimple face with ass sweat for trying to mess with. The sick in the head, get that on my meds. Flipping tables in schoolyards to bed. Toss my mind out the window in a traffic jam. I can stand on my rock up, damn it. Man, it's fucking awful how my thoughts are scrambled. Daniel's freaking lost it. Yeah, I'm off the handles. And a few fosters who be talking randles. Looking through the Sammy B until my thoughts all stand still. Cancel all your plans, jump the tracks and slam you. Ain't outside the block, you can stand that, can't you? You have the time to help me find the peace of mind. So that's fine.
The technology likely to have the greatest impact on the next few decades has arrived. And it's not social media, it's not big data, it's not robotics, it's not even AI. And you'll be surprised to learn that it's the underlying technology of digital currencies like Bitcoin. It's called the blockchain. Blockchain. Now, it's not the most sonorous word in the world, but I believe that this is now the next generation of the internet, and that it holds vast promise for every business, every society, and for all of you individually. You know, for the past few decades, we've had the internet of information. And when I send you an email or a PowerPoint file or something, I'm actually not sending you the original, I'm sending you a copy. And that's great. This is democratized information. But when it comes to assets, things like money, financial assets like stocks and bonds, loyalty points, intellectual property, music,